Jury selection begins in Los Angeles this morning in a civil trial against Toyota. In 2009, a 66-year-old woman died. She crashed her Camry into a tree and a pole. The car had sped up to more than 100 miles per hour. Her family claims Toyota is liable for the unintended acceleration. Toyota denies the claim. CBS News legal analyst Jack Ford joins us now. Jack, good morning.
Good morning, John.
Aren't these things normally settled?
The vast majority, overwhelming majority of civil cases do get settled for a whole lot of reasons. But every once in a while, you've come across cases where both sides have so much to gain or to lose that the decision is we're going to have to go into a court where we're going to make our arguments, and ultimately we'll let a jury decide how this one is going to be resolved.
What does Toyota have to lose?
Well, Toyota is looking at the possibility of a lot here. Now, what happened is, you mentioned the accident in itself, and the plaintiffs are saying, her family is saying that this acceleration was the consequence of one or two things, and the death was the consequence of one or two things. Either a defect in the design or manufacture of the vehicle that caused the acceleration, or the failure of Toyota to put in an override, a braking override system that would kick in when something like this happens. And the plaintiff said, indeed, Toyota has such a system in some other vehicles in Europe. But Toyota has said, look, terrible tragedy, but not our fault. They have said that there's no evidence of a defect. They've said that the override system would not have helped here. So they said it's a terrible tragedy, but not their fault. But in terms of what they have to lose, there are a lot of cases in the pipeline. There have been recalls about this, although not the model involved in this, in the year involved in this accident. But Toyota, if they lose, and if they lose big here, stands to find themselves in a situation where more people will file lawsuits, where there also may well be big numbers in terms of punitive damages. And that's what's scary. Now, you got to remember that whatever the jury does in this case is not binding on any other jury, any other place. Right. But still, emotionally and intellectually, it gets out there.
In this particular case, her name was Mrs. Uno, 66 years old. She said she, barely drove her Camry just a short while to the restaurant where she worked at, a family restaurant, where the speed limit was about 30 miles an hour. It accelerated, they claimed, to just over 100 miles an hour, and then the car slammed into a tree, and she died as a result. What does Toyota say caused the car to accelerate that fast?
What they've said here is it's not us, and they say oftentimes what causes these situations is either driver error, or sometimes something as simple as a floor mat getting wedged up against an accelerator. Yeah. A lot of people have experienced that in their driving history. So Toyota has come out and said, just because this is a terrible, tragic accident doesn't mean it's our fault. And sadly, this tragedy might have been her fault, but we're not to blame for it.
Jack Ford, thank you.
All right, John.
Thanks.